And Brian, let me begin with you. We heard Secretary Kerry there laying out the string of evidence tying this downing indirectly to Russia. The Ukrainians have gone even farther. In a statement put out by their embassy yesterday, they say the crew comprised Russian militaries who immediately committed the terrorist act. We can't go that far.
The U.S. has not gone that far. They've demonstrated, they say, through intelligence that the Russian military delivered the SA-11 and then tried to sneak it out of the country after the crash.
Those photos as well.
And showing those photos with two of the missiles apparently missing. They have not identified exactly who pulled the trigger.
But Steve Ganyard, at some level, that almost doesn't matter, although it would be significant information, because this is such a sophisticated missile system, it would require Russian training.
It would. It's not like you can pull somebody out of the field, a farmer tending his field, or even bring rebels in from Russia to say, here, operate this very, very sophisticated surface-to-air missile system. It's going to require training. You can't just hook it up, pull the trigger, and bring an airplane down.
We're also getting new reports this morning from the rebel leaders that they may have gotten the black box from the airliners. You don't think that's going to make much of a difference?
I don't, George. I think we're really in a recovery operation right now. The black box probably will tell us nothing more than that this airplane was a perfectly good airplane up to the moment that missile hit it. So I think right now we know that the missile brought this airplane down. It's not a conventional crash. We need to go on to the intelligence forensics and figure out who did it and why.
So many questions about what the plane was doing flying over that area in the first place. I want to put up this map right now that shows the FAA flight restrictions right now, places where it is now prohibited and potentially hostile regions. You see, Brian Ross, so much of the globe right now.
Absolutely, and it's interesting to note that over Ukraine, most major European airlines and United Airlines were actually flying over that same location in the week before the shootdown. United and other American airlines have now stopped flying there. But some questions are, if the U.S. knew about the intelligence indicating there were these long-range missiles, and Ukraine knew about it, why was that airspace still open?
And the answer?
Hard to determine, George. We also had NATO 3 weeks ago saying we were seeing training by the Russians on these very sophisticated tactical SAMs. Who determined that 32,000 feet was safe after we've had 4 shoot downs in the past 2 weeks? It's just
because if you determine these missiles can go far higher than that.
They can. I mean, the what we call man pads, these shoulder-fired missiles, there are tens of thousands of them around the world. They keep the intelligence agency up at night worrying about a commercial shoot-down. But the SA-11 is a very sophisticated radar-guided surface-to-air missile system that is just, it's a total escalation in capability, and it goes up as far as any airliner could ever fly. So,
and then gets to the question of, though, it's hard to imagine that anyone would want to deliberately shoot down a civilian aircraft. Can't this missile system distinguish between a civilian and a military aircraft?
The SA-11 can determine whether it's a Russian airplane or not a Russian airplane. It can't say that's a Ukrainian military or that's a commercial airplane. So they saw a blip up there, they locked onto it, they said it's not Russian, pull the trigger. And then what we're hearing from the intercepts is this joy, hey, we brought down a military airplane. And they said, oh no, it's a commercial. So it probably was not done deliberately. I mean, why would they want the world opinion against them? So it probably was a mistake, but it was a terribly bad one.
Meanwhile, Brian, Steve brought up this threat also of the shoulder-fired missiles, which can go only about 10 or 12,000 feet, which have been a particular threat to passenger aircraft going on takeoff and landing, and now they're held by rebels and different groups in 47 different countries.
And actually, and George, those are people who do want to shoot down commercial aircraft. That's their goal, is to bring down commercial aircraft. And they're in large areas throughout the Mideast and Africa. It's a serious concern.
Okay, Brian Ross, Steve Ganyard, thanks very much. Let's get more on all this now from the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Rogers. Mr. Rogers, thank you for joining us this morning. Any doubt in your mind that Russia's behind this?
Well, I think this certainly eliminates Putin's plausible deniability, and he's been operating that way in Ukraine since the beginning of this conflict and him taking Crimea. So you know that this is so sophisticated, you're not even going to hand this weapon system off without having trainers present, maintenance personnel. These things are delicate, sophisticated, and highly lethal, as we've seen. So yeah, the evidence is mounting that this had at least Russian hands, at least at some point, on this piece of equipment that led to the massacre of those individuals on that airplane.
So if Putin has no plausible deniability, what should the United States do right now and the world?
Well, I'm hoping that this is an opportunity to get our European allies really engaged. Phone calls with Putin, that's all wonderful. This is as serious as it gets. They just massacred 290-some civilians. It's time to end Putin's gamesmanship in Ukraine. It means that the United States needs to end its tepid response to this whole operation by increasing intelligence cooperation, logistics, training opportunities, and we need European allies to step up its opportunity to put really tough sanctions. If you're going to get his attention, you've got to increase these sanctions on Putin.
You called the United States response tepid, but it was President Obama who was out ahead of the Europeans on Wednesday, even before this aircraft went down.
Yeah, but here's the problem. For months now, the Ukrainians have been saying, hey, we need some help. We need logistics, food. We need the ability to move fuel and other things, ammunition, of which has not been coming. The only thing the United States really did is they stepped and said, well, we're going to give you these MREs, meals ready to eat. And that's just not enough. If we wanted to be aggressive to try to push back and take control so you don't have rebels playing around with sophisticated, very lethal missile systems, you need to be aggressive in our help for the Ukrainian military. Again, not boots on the ground, but training, intelligence, logistics, food, and other things that could have been very, very helpful in this case. And at the same time, we need to continue to ramp up sanctions. It worries me that the president hasn't rallied the Europeans to his, at least to his level of sanctions that he applied earlier this week. He needs to engage in that relationship, and he needs to start pushing a little bit so that we don't have another incident like this.
We've heard from both the British Prime Minister and the Dutch Prime Minister that they're prepared to do that this morning. How about this broader threat of missiles? How worried should air passengers be?
Well, obviously, this is something that keeps the intelligence community up at night. And when you look at what our MANPADS, which is the shoulder fired, that is, through intelligence, aggressive intelligence, good posturing, working with liaison partners, intelligence services around the world, you can at least suppress their ability to get in position to fire one. Obviously, when you're at 32,000 feet, these are ineffective. But when you look across northern Africa and the concerns there, certainly Libya and its proliferation of weapons in the region, Egypt, other places, it's starting to get concerning that we don't have a good handle on all of those weapon systems. We have programs to go after these weapon systems that they're called MANPADS, find them, either destroy them or take them into custody. You're never going to be 100% in that effort. And so that's the concern, and that's why aggressive intelligence operations around the world are so critically important.
Chairman Rogers, thanks very much for your time this morning. Up next, so many hotspots all over the globe, and